All right. It's time to talk about personal finance. And I guess just kind of my experience with it and just kind of, I guess, not specifics, because again, I don't really want to get technical on how it all works, but the principles will apply to your life and it's completely different for every life. So it's more important to talk about the principles, I think, than the specifics of me. Um, but basically, yeah, I'm part of the FIRE community. Now, that is not necessary. I'm not advocating for it necessarily. I think a lot of people are kind of, find work fulfilling and they don't really have any interest in retiring until, maybe a little bit later in life. But the point is if you ever do have any interest in it, you want good finances. And generally, even if you want to work, you want good finances. So we're going to go ahead and talk about, I guess, kind of my thoughts on personal finance and just generally. We might go deep dive, certain things, debt, tax, income, savings rate. Every single one of these things that I'm going to kind of generally cover, and I will miss some things. Every single one of them is a widely, there's a lot to learn. And this is just kind of a surface level, highlights. Because you don't need, I've seen a guy who made a fucking 30-second video that basically, yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do. If you follow the steps and research the steps a little bit more in depth. I'll kind of try and give you a little bit more educational take on it, I guess. But I suppose one of the first things to talk about is debt. We're going to talk about it briefly. Basically, debt is a useful tool, but it's something that also drowns people financially. Credit card debt specifically. This is the first thing, in my opinion. Other than, of course, you're gonna want to generally just kind of have a budget. A lot of people, that's the first step. Is just figure out what you're spending, figure out your budget. Make sure your expenses are paid. Make sure you have all food for the family. Get your powers on. Do all that stuff. Right. Get your health care premiums paid. Like do all that stuff so that you can avoid some very significant crises of getting evicted, having a medical emergency without insurance, all that type of stuff. Handle that first. Next up would probably be attacking your debt intelligently. The easiest way to do it really is never pay interest. Have credit cards and use them. That's definitely a strategy you want to use. Leverage a 2% simple cashback withdrawal cards. If you live a bit more of a, I guess, luxurious life, points cards generally favor that. But either way, I just use a 2% card, the Wells Fargo Active Cash. Very good card. Pretty easy to get into. There's other options, Chase City Cash or whatever. But anyway, that's use your credit cards, but never pay a dime in interest. And if you have interest and you have debt, pay that type of debt off first and pay it to the highest percentage first, and then get rid of it. And every purchase that you make for the rest of your life, because this is really the fundamental thing, is live within your means. If you live within your means, you're going to be okay. And then you want to have some padding for emergencies, but live within your means and try to avoid lifestyle inflation. I've never experienced lifestyle inflation really, and that's been part of my the reason why I'm able to retire. Is I'm a boring guy. I didn't do a lot of shit, but I saved a lot of money by doing that. But as you begin to progress in your career, as you get to the next level, as you get the next promotion, and your income increases, if you don't really change anything, your savings rate is going to increase, and that is the strength, and that is what is actually going to let you save money and really start to stack it up. Is when you increase your savings rate and also your total savings. So your income is a highly important tool, and in fact, it's probably the most important tool. If you make $200,000 and live off 50, fucking, you're banking it, right? And that's kind of what I was doing. Anyway, more or less. Anyway, so tackle your debt appropriately. Certain debts are okay depending on how much cash liquid you are. If you want to own a home, you're probably going to have that mortgage, and if you get a good rate on it, let's just talk about this very briefly. I don't really mind saying it. I have a 5.5 interest rate on my home, and that's pretty good. Generally, the market, the S&P 500, is going to beat that. Now you have to consider some amount of taxation for that, but generally, I just pay the minimum on my mortgage. And there are people out there who got a home during COVID. They got 2%. And if you can make more money, this is generally the idea, debt versus investment. If you can make more money by investing, go ahead and invest. If you can if you're basically on par, it can be more beneficial to you long run to put more towards your home or your car or whatever. I paid my car off early, and that's an example. When I got a loan for my car, I had paid it off in about a year because I didn't want to pay, the higher interest debt that I had at the time. I don't remember what it was, but anyway. All right, that's debt. All right, next up is kind of what do you do once your debts are taken care of? Well, you need to start getting some savings. And generally, the most common recommendation is if you have none, and some people don't, start with a $1,000. Sorry, my computer's getting a little loud. Start with a $1,000 like emergency fund. This is going to cover your car breakdown, new tires. It's going to cover a lot of basic things that aren't planned. They're not. You can't anticipate them really. Start with that. And my recommendation is put that into a high yield savings account, of course, one that's, like Discover Bank, SoFi Bank, get a savings account through them, and they're going to give you something like 3 to 3.5 percentage, and it's way better than any, brick and mortar Bank of America checking account. Do that. And personally, I actually don't even use my checking unless I got to write a check. Everything goes in and comes out of my savings. That's just personally how I do it. Some people don't like to do it that way, but I just like every single dollar to get that higher rate, even if it's pretty minimal, the returns you get. I just think it's simpler to set everything up to withdraw from that. All right. Next up, you probably want to figure out where you can cut some bills. Because realistically, again, you want to kind of, if you, like for me, I've always kind of been frugal when it comes to clothing, when it comes to even just like my phone provider. Okay, I use T-Mobile, I use T-Mobile Internet, whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. But most of this stuff is functional. Like, the most common thing that's going to get you is your car, probably. Most people that are listening to this, your car is probably the thing that you could save the most money on if you were being realistic. If you're thinking about making a new car purchase, probably don't. Buy a used car, buy an older car. Don't buy a junk car, but buy a good car because realistically, the function is all that matters. So when I talk about T-Mobile, it's shit's worked for me fucking perfect for pretty much ever. Every once in a while, yeah, you'll get T-Maybe, but like generally it functions. And a car is just a daily driver. Unless you drive a trucker or something and you use it for work, like generally you just need to get from A to B. So a lot of people really overspend on this category, and you can apply that to everything. You can apply that to subscriptions. You can apply that to, there's so much shit, right? Hair appointment, everything. Well, look at your budget because everything's going to be specific to you. So track your expenses. Figure out what you're overspending on. If you spent fucking $100 on Taco Bell and you want to only spend, hey, I'm only spending $25 on Taco Bell. Whatever your number is, you're going to find it only by looking at the data. All right. Continuing on. So now that you've kind of got your debt under control and you've got your emergency fund, kind of what's the next step? Generally, the next step after that is to meet your employer match if you have one for your 401k type of account, because it's basically free money. My employer was pretty generous for the 1 year that I worked for him, and they gave me something like $10,000 just free cash for meeting that minimum. And of course, I was trying to max it out, but that comes a little later. In there, I'd say. After that, you probably want to increase your buffer of savings to about 3 to 6 months of living expenses in case you get laid off. In case the whatever it is, financial stability is very important. Being able to just pay your bills for an extended period of time without income you're going to feel so good about having that. And that's what I would start to recommend. After that, we'll take a small pause so I can just formulate my next thoughts. All right, so I just had a quick pause. Just wanted to make sure I'm not going to ramble completely fucking stupidly. I suppose the next important thing is to kind of consider what health insurance you want, because the next account that's kind of very valuable if you want to use it is like a health savings account. If you're young and healthy like me, I kind of opted for the, super high deductible option, so that the cheapest plan that probably is going to be allowed for you. I forget what they call it right now, but it lets you get a health savings and invest in that. Different levels for whether you're single or married. Pretty valuable tool. It can kind of take away some of the burden of expenses. It's just like a triple tax advantage account. It's probably the best account for just like raw, like what it does for you. But the limitation to what you can contribute is relatively low. I think this year was about $4,300. So consider your health, how much health care you need, the health care of the family that you support, and make a decision there about whether you need that account or not. After that, hopefully you still have some income left over. And if you don't, honestly, that's okay. Just kind of keep grinding and try and increase your income so that your savings rate can adjust. Again, if you can find a way to save more money, great. But otherwise, this is a pretty okay place to be. You can healthily probably retire by just following this plan for most of your life, and you'll be able to retire at an older age. But if you want to retire earlier, this is kind of where you want to start kind of putting more in. So hopefully you'll have that extra income. Probably the thing that you're going to want to do is, for me, I just maxed out my 401k. There's a whole lot to discuss, whether it's Roth or whether it's IRA, whether it's taxable. I personally use taxable because I anticipated that my spending rate will be lower in retirement. If you think it'll be higher, if you think that when you retire you're really going to live it up and go fucking ham, then a Roth is probably your best option. But kind of just evaluate that one for yourself. Kind of research that topic, or I'll talk about it more later. But you want to just invest into probably that 401k. You can also invest in a IRA, either again traditional or Roth. Kind of whether your total income kind of affects which ones you have access to or options with. And there are some specifics again that really are going to apply to you. But those are the two kind of accounts that are really your bread and butter for retirement, is your 401k and your IRAs. Again, your HSA is pretty helpful because it's if you do retire, it's just a Roth basically, and you didn't have to pay taxes on it, which is pretty nice. After that, there are some other accounts that personally I haven't used. Things like saving for your kids' college, saving for your own education. There's certain accounts that I've just never really looked into closely, so I couldn't really speak much on them. But those are out there too, and they can be very helpful to meet your goals. Then the final account, and this is really the account that's I think very critical if you are looking to do FIRE, is your taxable brokerage account. These are really, this is your bridge account basically. There is a way to roll over money from a traditional 401k into a Roth IRA, wait 5 years, and then you can pull out the contributions. That's a very strong strategy. I will use that strategy in time. But for a while, I'll be living off of my taxable accounts and also some of my other income streams. I do own a duplex, and who knows, maybe this will go somewhere, but there's some other income streams that I have. I sell some accounts online. I'll get into this at some point. I've sold some fucking Genshin Impact accounts online, and just when I was working for the military, and I made like 40K on it in just like a year, and just starting from zero. So that was fun. That was kind of fun to grow that little business, which makes me excited to kind of grow this business too. But I'm kind of failing at it right now, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, I'm only like less than a weekend. But basically the main thing, if you really want to do FIRE, this is the principle that's going to matter, is that whatever your expenses are that you need to have, including tax, so you have to really do the math, you want to have all of that covered. You really want to know what am I going to spend, and then kind of what's a buffer over that, and you want to be able to meet that every year. And when it comes to withdrawing out of accounts, the rule that is generally used is the 4% rule. Or let's just say that you're purely living off investments. This is a perfectly viable strategy. If not, basically the way you want to do it is, let's just say that you want to spend $50,000 a year and you're only going to do it taxable. Then you're going to multiply that number by 25, and that's the raw number you need in investments, liquid cash. Well, not cash, but investments that you can sell 4% of. And then next year, when you want to withdraw that $50,000 again, essentially, it's going to be equivalent in like inflationary spending dollars. So your actual number, like looking at, there's a really helpful website. It's really expensive, Projection Lab, but I didn't care for money at the time, so I just go ahead and spent it. You can see that in like 30 years, if I want to live off $50,000, that might be something like $150,000. By the time you're approaching like the end of life. And these numbers really get inflated pretty big. But the point is that the general cost of living isn't going to change much other than inflation. So that's the general math. And then if you have excess income, if you have a pension, if you have rental income, if you have whatever it is that you have that's kind of supplementing that, you just subtract that number from your expenses and then multiply that remaining number by the 25. And that's the number you need to get to, financial stability. Okay. I suppose that pretty much wraps it up. In terms of what you should invest in, I suppose this is important to say. I personally take the approach of just the S&P 500 primarily. VOO, I don't really, VTI. I personally use Fidelity for my investment accounts, and I invest in FZ, ROX, and FNILX. I think it is. Basically, just your total market cap and your S&P 500 equivalent type of things. You don't have any expense ratios. Very nerdy shit. But if you're interested in talking about it, or you can always ask, and I'll talk about it more. But that's what I use, and I think that generally it's probably the best thing. There's a very big argument about active investment versus index investing. Generally, the index is going to win. You could be that guy. You could be that guy who can pick stocks really fucking good. But you kind of have to make it a little bit of a job to really succeed. I think you have to make it kind of a full-time thing. You're researching companies. You're looking at, you're really analyzing them in an intelligent way. And otherwise, I think you're just kind of fucking shooting random. And when you have this pretty easy button to press, which is just S&P 500, I think you should just press it, and then you don't have to worry so much about it. But whatever choice you want to make, do you. I would just avoid gambling. That's all I would say. Is you worked hard for this money. You don't want to lose it on a big bet on some company that you think is going to do, or options and all this other stuff. Crypto. To speak very briefly about crypto. I bought some of it in like 2022, and I really haven't bought any more since. I've lost about 50% of my total valuation. So there you go. But overall, I do think it's an okay investment. I just think that, again, it's kind of an uncertain thing. It's new. It's untested. The S&P is very tested. I would probably say significant majority of your investment should be safe ones. Overall, as you approach retirement, this is not something that I have really done yet, but you're probably going to want to transition. You just to speak briefly about tax, and once you start actually pulling things out of certain accounts. For me, I'm going to be pulling out a balance of taxable. Once I'm 59 or whatever, I'll pull out a mix of traditional funds, Roth funds, so that I can kind of really hit the exact tax bracket I want to kind of minimize my tax burden. That's a whole topic. That's a whole thing, really. But anyway, if you really want to embark on this journey, you're going to have to know those things, so we'll talk about them. But anyway, that's pretty much the general idea behind personal finance. It really is a very personal thing. It really depends on how you want to live your life. How many vacations you want to go on. Do you want to wear designer Gucci? Like, I don't really care if you do or don't, but just know that you're going to, it's going to impact you some way, and you just have to be ready to pay for that impact. I don't really care just wearing plain t-shirts, I don't give a fuck. And I don't think that anybody really cares what people are wearing at the end of all this shit. So anyway, that's just the idea. Kind of live within your means. Overall, recap, live within your means. I had a couple notes. Live within your means. Try to increase your income, increase your savings rate. Kind of really track your expenses, really know what you're spending money on. I think that's the thing that people just don't seem to pay attention to is, what am I spending money on? Fast food is fucking 20% of my yearly spending. It's crazy. That would be a really bad number. And maybe that's some people, or maybe it's just whatever it is. 1% is too high for you. We want to lower it. Leverage your accounts for your 401k, IRA, HSA, taxable, kind of in whatever suits your needs. And once you get to retirement, just take care of your health, because that's going to be the thing that lets you enjoy that for many years. That's what I'm kind of trying to do. Anyway, this has been a long topic. There's so much more I could say about individual topics, and there's really so much to glean off of this to improve your life. Hopefully this has been somewhat helpful as just a general snapshot. That's all I got for now. We'll talk to you guys later.